I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Hello Arcadia, and welcome to a special edition of Apache News. I'm Gavin Sang.
And I'm Brendan Ho. Today we'll be covering some important issues in the news and how they affect us all. But first, let's give you a little bit of campus news.
This is show 13.
Apache's, the school year is already halfway over, and that means prom is coming up in a couple of months. If you're interested in sharing your ideas for probable prom themes, today will be the last day to post your suggestions to the link on the ASB website.
Remember that today is the last day to purchase spaghetti dinner tickets for band and color guard at $12.15 at the door tomorrow.
By now, all of you should be aware of the recent incidents challenging the freedom of speech. To give you a better understanding of these events, let's go to Julia here.
On January 7th, 2015, masked gunmen stormed the offices of a French satirical news magazine. This shooting at the Charlie Hebdo offices left 12 people dead. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the families who lost loved ones. Now, a big question is how the world is responding to these tragic events. How has freedom of speech been compromised?
One issue that is facing American publishers and news agencies right now with regard to the First Amendment is whether or not to republish the Charlie Hebdo magazine covers that have cartoons featuring the Prophet Muhammad. Some people found those cartoons very, very offensive. And those cartoons have been cited as the reason why Al-Qaeda in Yemen decided to carry out these attacks.
The recent movie, The Interview, was almost not released because of threats made by Sony hackers. It was, however, released online and in select theaters. The threats were tied to the North Korean government. They did, however, deny any involvement. These aren't the first threats that have occurred against the media outlets. In 2005, a Danish newspaper published 12 editorial cartoons which depicted the Prophet Muhammad. These led to protests around the world, including violent demonstrations. All of these publications have exercised their freedom of speech, but have caused outrage in some parts of the world. So the question is, how should this generation respond? Should we be more careful about the ideals, however extreme, or should we continue exercising full, unfiltered freedom of speech? This has been Julia here. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Julia. Following the Charlie Hebdo shooting, people are beginning to question the limits to freedom of expression. Nicole Viscar was able to sit down and interview 3 teachers discussing this topic.
Thank you, Gavin. I'm sitting down with 3 teachers from the Social Studies Department, Mr. Beckwith, Mr. Pasquale, and Mr. Barclay, to discuss an ongoing dispute over freedom of expression. First off, what is freedom of expression?
Well, first, it's enshrined in our First Amendment based on our constitutional history. According to the Supreme Court, it all depends on the time, place, and manner of that expression, much like free speech.
What is the difference between freedom of speech and hate speech?
Freedom of speech is a right that's guaranteed you in the Constitution. Hate speech is something that tends to incite somebody to some type of action, whether it's a sign, whether it's verbal, whether it's a message, whether it's even a YouTube video, and it tends to be setting up to incite basically to violate somebody else's civil rights at that point.
How does France differ from the United States over freedom of expression protection?
Sometimes the reaction is extreme by certain groups, perhaps in Europe, and maybe that's true here in America too. But how the government of France handles that, they can be a little bit more strict.
Plus, we have 200 years of Supreme Court cases that deal with these various issues. And so the government kind of has ideas in terms of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And we've seen things that might personally offend us, but for the most part, the court have said they're within their constitutional rights to do so. France, oddly enough, that when the big march was going on over the weekend, there were people being arrested for inciting a riot, and because of the speech comments they were making, which sort of went to the opposite opinion. So even in France, the freedom of speech is not an absolute right.
Why is the satirical image of Muhammad offensive to Muslims?
That's something that, going way back to the beginning of Islam, is offensive. So if you have a group like Charlie Hebdo and some of their, the speech they've done could be considered hate speech. It would be offensive, I think, to Muslims. But then the question would be, well, how do you react to that? And there are lots of appropriate ways to handle a situation like that. You can protest outside their offices, call attention that here's a group that's being insensitive to your religious beliefs on the one hand. On the other hand, being violent, it really doesn't solve anything. And again, it brings more attention to a group like Charlie Hebdo. Violence against a group like that is obviously wrong. Yeah.
Can you think of any incidents similar to Charlie Hebdo?
South Park. They did an episode, and I'm not sure if they received death threats for the episode. They did, where they showed all these various religious leaders, and they were portrayed as the super friends of the cartoon from the 1960s. And Muhammad, the entire episode was censored out, so you couldn't see what he looked like. It was just a black bar that said censored.
And there are two that come to mind. The Danish cartoonist who did a picture where he sort of offended the prophet and had to go into hiding. And going back into the 1970s, there was a writer by the name of Salman Rushdie who wrote a book called The Satanic Verses. And the Ayatollah Khomeini, who was the spiritual leader of Iran, actually put a fatwa, death sentence on him, and he had to go into hiding for a long period of time because he was afraid that he was going to get killed.
Why should students know these issues?
I think students need to understand that there are many things going on in the world around them. They need to be aware of these things. People should learn to respond in an appropriate way and not to resort to violence.
You may have freedom of speech, but that doesn't mean there are consequences for your actions.
That's right.
And if you're someone who travels to another country, you want to really be aware of the culture, the language, whatever it is, the issues that are going on in that country, because you can put your life in danger if you say something you shouldn't be saying.
Although freedom of speech is still an ongoing dispute, we conclude our interview. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you
for having us very much.
Thanks, Nicole, and all the teachers for explaining this issue. The new movie, The Interview, has gotten a lot of buzz due to the controversy and international frenzy surrounding it. Patrick saw it and has some things to say.
Due to previous discussion, it leads me to wonder what happened in the entertainment area. This event involves Sony Pictures, possibly the CIA, the White House, and the North Korean government. That's right, people. I'm talking about The Interview.
Hello, who this?
This is the Secretary of Communication for North Korea. Our Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un is interested in doing an interview with Dave Skylark.
Oh my God.
I'm Agent Lacey with Central Intelligence.
You want us to kill the leader of North Korea?
Yes.
What?
Now, this Rogan Franco movie was supposed to be released on Christmas Day of last year. But well, that did not happen. Instead, it was threatened to stay off the big screen, but despite these threats, it was still put on by search and dealers and was put up online in various sites. The movie itself was very hilarious because we could easily see the Rogan Franco bromance.
Oh, I'm a good swimmer.
It's really, really far.
People have done it.
Nope.
Yep, Michael Phelps did it.
That's not true.
This comedy follows a producer with a main actor of a talk show as they go to North Korea to get the hit interview with the Supreme Leader, Kim Jong-un. As this happens, many things go wrong. Lots of strange personality traits arise, making you question the motives of the movie. And puppies are involved. Don't worry, no animals were harmed in the making of this movie. The plotline of the movie wasn't the best in the sense of it being a real story. Instead, the movie's purpose was more about being silly, funny, and possibly pointless. This has been Patrick Munoz with a short entertainment segment of Who Knows the Movies. I will be back soon with another major motion picture.
Thanks, Patrick. Update for all students who signed up with physics team for the Physics Olympiad Prelim F=MA exam. The exam will be now held on Monday, January 26th. The exam will focus on all of mechanics. Don't forget to study.
Petition forms will be available on the COD desk if you want to drop to TA or request a level change. All petitions must be turned in no later than today. Requests can still be submitted, but not guaranteed. Let's take a quick break.
We'll be right back after sports.
It's going down for real.
Girls varsity basketball has been wrecking the competition. They played against Hoover and won 45-23. Glendale 52-38. Let's see some highlights.
Apache started off strong in the first quarter as Christian Shiganaga finds Melanie Chen in the open to put up a quick three behind the arc. Here, number 20, Rachel Chavez smoothly drives in for a layup and draws a foul for the and one. Here, Rachel Chavez again shows no mercy as she gets a sweet block. Get down to the ground.
Well, I think as a player, you have to stay focused. So like through every quarter, it wasn't about winning the entire game, but winning quarter by quarter. And if you do that, then obviously you have to win. That was our mindset as a team.
for the last minute before the game starts, we always huddle up and talk to each other and make sure like everyone's focused, everyone's ready to play. Well, my main goal for this season is that our communication is a lot better and our teamwork's a lot better this year.
I try to put my best foot forward, give the team confidence when we need to, and really work together as a team and try to communicate with all our coaches so we can get our points across fairly.
Come to our games, please. We need more support, and with more support, we'll have more energy to play, and hopefully we'll win CIF.
Like, we're gonna try to win. Like, we want to win this season. This year is our year.
Boys varsity soccer has been killing it this season. On Friday, they played Hoover and won 2-0. On Monday, they played Glendale High School, and thanks to Lucas Berger for 2 goals at the end of the game, they won 3-2. On Tuesday, they played Burroughs High School and won again with a goal from Chris Paul in the second half, making their league record 4-0. They have a game today against Pasadena High School at 3:30 at home. So come out and support your amazing Arcadia varsity soccer team.
With varsity basketball, I've lost a couple of close ones recently, but that's okay, because we'll be playing our rivals, Crescenta Valley, next Friday at the North Gym at 7 o'clock. So come out and support. Let's go. Squad out.
While enjoying this upcoming Monday off, we must remember why we have it off in the first place. January 19th is the day we celebrate the birth of one of the most influential civil rights activists in history. Let's go to Valerie Gasparini for more on Martin Luther King Jr.
On January 19th, we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. by honoring his memory and remembering his accomplishments. Dr. Martin Luther King was a Baptist minister, social activist, nonviolent civil rights leader, and the youngest person to ever win the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1955, Dr. King led the Montgomery bus boycott that lasted 381 days. This even made him the national leader of the civil rights movement. Through his activism, he played a pivotal role in ending the legal segregation of African American citizens in the South and other areas of the nation. From 1957 to 1968, King traveled over 6 million miles and gave over 2,500 speeches, wrote 5 books, and dozens of articles.
I have a dream.
His famous I Have a Dream speech, symbolically delivered from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963, confirmed that he was one of the greatest orators of all time. In April 1968, Dr. King was in Memphis to help protect the rights of the striking garbage workers. And here, King delivered his famous I've Been to the Mountaintop speech.
But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop.
Sadly, it would be his last speech ever given. King was gunned down outside of his Lorraine hotel room in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968. Dr. King said you had to do 2 things in order to be free. First, you had to forgive everybody for everything they've done to you. And second, you had to lose your fear of death. As King said, it's not how long you live, but it's how well you live. Dr. King will always be honored and remembered in American history. We thank him for his courage, dedication, and ultimate sacrifice of his life for not only African Americans, but all people. This has been Valerie Gasparini. Now let's go to Patrick Munoz for more on the new movie Selma, which chronicles the Montgomery March led by Dr. King.
Thanks, Val. On the other hand, Patrick Munoz here with another Who Knows the Movie segment. Now there is a new movie currently out in theaters. What is this movie? Well, if you cannot read the backdrop behind me or notice the sly handoff from the previous story topic to me, the movie is titled Selma.
We must march! We must stand up!
You march those people into rural Alabama, it's gotta be open season.
May I have a word? There's no word to be had.
This movie is not a full documentary, but instead focuses on one key event in MLK's campaign for civil rights. In this 2-hour-long movie, their efforts are shown and we get a feel for the people being affected by the issues. This movie was so beautifully produced and directed that you can literally feel the high emotions passing through and can really connect with each individual. The actor that played Martin Luther King Jr., David Oyelowo, executed this role perfectly that no one could imagine a better actor to take on the role. I really do highly recommend that all you people watch this movie, like now. It is such a great movie, and let's face it, you people could use a break from studying for finals. This has been Patrick Munoz, and that concludes this week's Who Knows the Movies.
Those of you who are interested in seeing the award-winning movie and sharing your thoughts about it, Mr. Spruill will be holding a discussion about Selma and Martin Luther King Jr. on Wednesday, January 28th at lunch in room A208.
This is the end of this week's show.
But take a moment this week, if you haven't already,
to remember those who have lost their lives for our freedom
and the importance of this Monday's holiday.
See you second semester, and as always,
stay classy, Arcadia.